Hi. So I'm doing my laundry. I like to hand wash. I like to hand wash my laundry if I can. Sometimes I don't always have time to do that. Hands a little wet here. This is what I do. I got it in a bucket. Kind of agitate it with this nasty ass thing. It's a little stick, whatever. I just throw some soap in there, agitate it for a little while, let it soak, and then I scrub the shit out of it. Like I scrub that shit so much that I lose my my skin on my knuckles. And dry everything, whatever, yada yada. It's a bit of a habit or survival mechanism that I picked up on when I was in prison. I didn't actually wash my clothes or anyone else's clothes in prison, but I saw people do that, and that's a way to make money. And I always admired that. It was a little bit too much for me at the time. I was like, I'm not doing that, but that's kind of cool because you see, like guys just, our dorm was really peaceful, so you'd see guys setting up in the corners somewhere with a bucket, a couple of buckets, and washing the clothes really good, Technically, that kind of gets the clothes cleaner than the machines that they have at the prison. You know what I'm saying? Like you're throwing your linens in, your uniforms, your bed clothes in with a bunch of other dudes, places that you don't know about, diseases you don't know about. And those machines themselves ain't been cleaned out in years. Blah. So yeah, that's why I do this now. I started to do this when I was at the motel across the street, and New Year's came around. This is before I got kicked out. New Year's came around, and the machines broke down. They had washing and drying machines that I was using, and those broke down. So I just started to do this out of necessity, but I've kind of kept with it. Sometimes I'll use the machines out of convenience. They got nice machines here, but I mean, it is what it is. I kind of like walking around with clothes on that I know I've washed. It's kind of a point of pride. So go ahead and agitate this shit if I can stay balanced. Splish splash. Your mom is a hoe. That's how the song goes. So yeah, I wanted to talk about certain things. Oh, I did this. Getting in here so I can get close to my game on this. Maybe I can set you up somewhere. How's that? That's safe? That's safe for you? You feel safe? You feeling safe? I ain't gonna hurt you. I feel like old-fashioned doing this, Like I should go out to the well and draw the water or something. So yeah, I was just kind of thinking, can't sit down all the way? Oh, that sucks. I was just kind of thinking that, I use this channel to kind of talk about my reintegration into society and stuff. And my mental health is something that I wanted to touch on. I'll just go ahead and jump in 2 feet, or with 2 feet. I hear audio hallucinations almost constantly. Now, I've had drug use in the past. I've used drugs. Smoked a lot of cannabis from around the time I turned 21. That was when I first smoked pot. And then through my 20s, basically up until my mom died, very heavy cannabis use. Drank a lot too in those times. Experiment with LSD and mushrooms, of course. A little bit of coke, not really my thing. But there was a time when You know, I mean, my mom liked Coke. There was always Coke in the house. So, you know, sometimes I'd do what I would do with my mom. You know, it was kind of like our way of bonding. And, but it's not really my thing. I'm not big on amphetamines. I grew up on Adderall, so I don't need to do cocaine. That's how I feel about it. I actually kind of turn my nose up at it. You know, and I almost said in high school, in prison I smoked K2, which could have been anything really. I mean, the K2 game is really dark and sketchy. We all know that. And the first month of my incarceration of being at R&E, I didn't spend a day sober. So all these things considered, and add that to my genetic predisposition for schizophrenia, drum roll please, I now have constant auditory hallucinations. Words that will repeat, phrases that will repeat. Sometimes they'll make sense, sometimes they're just completely out of context, but I can tell you that they are always derogatory, always negative, always bringing me down in some kind of a way. I don't want them to stop though. That's the thing. I know that's a bit counterintuitive, but I don't want anything to help me get rid of them. I've kind of developed a sort of a masochistic, maybe a little bit sadistic kind of dissonance, where I kind of get off, not like get off in a sexual way, but like when things are, when these hallucinations are rolling in, like really, and they will be somewhat responsive towards my active thoughts. You know, I don't know how to put it into words. I've just kind of developed a way to deal with them. And maybe it's a coping mechanism, maybe it's something more. I don't know. I don't talk to a therapist, because at this point I can't afford a therapist. I just got off of my insurance because that was too expensive. I have $400 I owe in my taxes, which I have to pay by April 14th. I've got about $200 saved up to cover for that this week. Next week I'll probably get the next $200. I'll be all right. Be able to do it. I can't do fucking insurance this year. I probably won't be able to do insurance for like the next 3 years, realistically. I just go with the flow. I roll with the punches. Auditory hallucinations all the time. I can deal with it. I was trying to self-diagnose earlier, honestly, and to see kind of where I fall on the mental health, whatever you call it. I think that I probably, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to place myself, honestly. I look at the diagnosis, like, requirements for schizophrenia. I don't fit all that. I don't fit that because I don't have disorganized thinking. I don't have disorganized behavior. I'm not the most organized. I'm not going to say that I'm like, you know, MC Escher levels of organized over here, but I mean, I keep a routine. I keep things in their place. I clean. You know, I'm organized. You know, organized enough. I'll put it that way. I'm not antisocial. I'm not the most social person, but I'm sociable. I don't have problems with eye contact. You know, I don't act strange or disconnected. I don't really fit the bill on a lot of these different types of sort of, for some reason my mind wants to say accusations, but like whatever, diagnosis. Like, I don't really fit the bill on a lot of them. But I do have auditory hallucinations. I do have auditory hallucinations, and I have a genetic predisposition for schizophrenia. My grandfather had schizophrenia. It was induced by trauma. He fought in World War II on the Pacific Front, and when he came back, he was different. Never actually met the man in person. Only knew him through stories that my mom would tell, basically, or other family members. Where do I want to go with this? I've had psychotic breakdowns in the past. I had a massive psychotic episode when I was living with my mom when she was dying, and that's about it. That's like really the only strong psychotic episode I've ever had, and it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. My memory of it is fragmented, but I do remember certain key parts. I remember getting in my clothes, getting my jeans. My jeans took forever to put on because I felt like my legs were miles long. I looked down at my legs and my jeans, and I was like, how the hell am I ever going to put these on? This is going to take years. I was like, my legs are at least 10 miles long each. Like, I was like, serious. I was like, there's no way. I was like, and then I put my legs into the pants, like into the pant legs, and I was like, where did my feet go? Like, I was literally having like this moment where I was like struggling just to put my pants on. Finally got dressed, and I got dressed in my pants that had like the most holes in them, my ripped up jeans, a tank top. I think I put a hipster beanie hat on, and maybe a pair of slippers. I'm not sure on that one. Can't confirm. And then I went out, and it was in the middle of winter in North Dakota, and it had just snowed like 8 feet of snow, and it was freezing. It was below freezing. It was windy out. And I'm walking down the middle of the street, and I am pissed off. And I am like cursing at the wind, cursing at the cold. You know, I feel the cold, but I really don't. Everything's white. I remember that. Everything was white, and I was walking through everything just on pure rage alone. And I went down to the local grocery store, ma and pop grocery store, and there was a guy that worked there who my sister had some kind of a sexual relationship with at the time. And for some reason I wanted to speak with him. And I remember walking into the store and screaming at the top of my lungs. His name was Tyler, and I started screaming for Tyler. I was like, Tyler! I was like, where are you? And then I remember Tyler showed up. Tyler was like, he had like came up to me, and he was like looking shocked, and he wasn't saying anything much. And he was like in front of me, and he put his hands out like this, like he was like trying to stabilize me. And I was like, I figured it out, bro. I figured it out. I was like, my life is a movie, and everyone else is just extras. And he looked at me for a second, and then I saw his facial features, like his eyes, his eyebrows, his nose, his mouth, they all ran away off of his face, and it was just flesh. And I remember I was like, well, that's weird. And then I woke back up in my bed. So I told this to a buddy of mine, and he was like, "Oh, well, are you sure that it really happened and it wasn't just a dream?" I was like, "Yeah, you just went and said the exact thing that I thought you're going to say, but then again, you say all sorts of fucking weird shit all the time." That happened. That happened, and other things happened. I remember. I remember my mom being sick with her brain cancer and my stepdad being there. And there's a really weird moment where my stepdad was trying to fuck me. And I turned around on him and I was like, "Whoa, hey." I was like, and he's like, like rock hard, ready to go. And I remember pushing him out of the house. Like I grabbed him by the shoulders and I kept on pushing him, and I just kept on saying, end, as in like, end the scene. Like I was calling out to the director or something. And I pushed him out of the house. I pushed him onto the porch. I closed the door and locked it. And my mom was like looking for him, but I didn't recognize who she was. I didn't remember her face, but for some reason I knew that she was important. Like she looked like a total stranger to me, like a total absolute stranger. But I knew she was important for some reason, so I couldn't just, throw her out. It's my mom, she's dying of brain cancer. I gotta take this one, I gotta be a little delicate here. And so I opened the door up for her, and I was like, "You gotta go, the movie's over." I was telling her that, I was like, "The movie is over, you gotta go." And she went out onto the porch too. I closed and I locked the doors, and I was like, "Good, all right, everybody's going home, now we can figure out what to do with the next scene." And then they came back inside because they had the key. And I was like, "What are you two doing back here?" I was like, What are you doing back here?" I was like, "You need to leave." I was like, "You're not allowed to be on set anymore." And they're freaking out. They're looking at me kind of scared. And I pushed them back. They're old people. I pushed them back out of the porch. And, kind of a struggle ensued. And every time I closed the door and lock them out, they would unlock it because they have the key, and that was a nightmare for me. That was like a nightmare moment for me because I was like, these people just don't go away. I was like, are they magnetically attracted to me or something? Like what is this? What's going on here? How come they just don't leave? Yeah, that was wild. That was fucking wild. I remembered it on the phone later on to the buddy who tried to later tell me that I was just dreaming. I remember screaming to him. Like, I picked up the phone. I don't remember what I said. But I remember just screaming to him. And he was like, "Do you mind if I call you back after breakfast?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem." He talked to me for like hours. We talked on the phone. I don't know even what it was about, but he was talking to me about like all sorts of things and trying to calm me down. And I remember thinking that like I was a giant egg. Like my mind was like going everywhere. I remember thinking I was a gigantic egg. That the entire, he was out driving when he was talking to me. And I had this idea that I was this gigantic egg and all the world's highways circled around me. And it was weird. And, I'm having this mental breakdown. I also think the Russians are trying to get to me. This entire time, I'm like the Russians. They've got everything. They won World War II, and they've done an experiment on my mind to make me think that things ain't the way it is. You know what I'm saying? I had this whole thing going on, and all these things are going on in the background of my mind. I'm not even articulating them, but I'm freaking out about them. Then I have another phone. In reality, I had another phone, but that other phone was spontaneously developing different antennas. It would have weird antennas that would grow out of it and then disappear the next moment I looked at them. And I was just like, what the fuck? And my computer was Satan. My computer was talking to me, and it was Satan. And there was a this thing that I got from a it was from a host fest that we went to. It was like a Norwegian host fest, and it was a little trinket, kind of like a tiny little carousel with these gold filament horses that were made out of sheet metal or sheet gold or something very thin and ornamental, and it was balanced on this little like spike or needle thing, this little spire thing, and you'd go up to it and the thing would spin around. And when I was talking to Satan / my computer, he was like flexing, and he was like, "Let me show you what I can do." And I was like, "All right." And I went over to the thing, to the little carousel thing, and I was like blowing on that shit, and it was not spinning. It was not spinning at all. It was like stationary, and I was just like, you broke physics. I was like, "You broke the laws of physics." And he was like, "Bow to me." And I was like, "Oh shit." My mind was out there. And this was, I had smoked a bowl of pot. And this is what I called, what did I call it? Oregano? It was some kind of oregano that I jokingly referred to the pot as oregano. I think it was like okie dokie oregano or some shit like that. Cornhusker oregano. I know I can't quite remember my exact vernacular for the shit weed that we got around that town. But it was shit weed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't strong. I've smoked much more. So I hit a little bit, had like a bowl. And then, I'm having all this trauma going on with my mom dying upstairs. I set my brain into the fucking Twilight Zone. This entire episode, and there was more. There's a lot more that I can't really get into all in one take, but it was isolated, it was localized, and it was related and linked to a traumatic period of my life in which there was a lot of traumatic things going on with my family. My mom dying was the catalyst of everything, but there were other things, like my brother trying to kill me, my sister treating me like a stranger. My sister and I had a very close relationship. And, her just suddenly acting like she didn't know who I was kind of fucked with my head a lot. So, all these things going on. It's not like I have psychotic episodes like that out of nowhere. And I haven't really had one since. My choice or my actions in burning down the gazebo in 2023 was an emotional outburst. It was an emotional response. It wasn't something like that. It wasn't like my head, it wasn't like my mind was elsewhere. It wasn't like the laws of physics were breaking or anything like that. It was an emotional kind of fuck you to whatever and whoever and however all these bad things have happened to me. It was like my way of trying to like throw some mud back. So yeah, no, I haven't really experienced a whole lot of breakdowns, psychotic episodes. I've had basically only one real psychotic episode in my entire life. So I don't feel like I'm schizophrenic, schizotypical, defective disorders, psychotic, or whatever. I have constant hallucinations, constant auditory hallucinations. I can deal with them. That's a thing. That's a thing that I have. But I don't fit into a whole lot of mental illness categories because I'm extremely high. I'm not throwing roses at myself here, but I'm extremely high functioning. I get my shit done. I go to work every day. You know, I might be a little odd, a little eccentric, but I'm not unrelatable, you know? I'm not like too far out there, shot out, as people in prison would say. I'm not shot out. Most everybody that I've met, their opinion of me is that I kind of stay in my own lane. A few people said I was a little too quiet, but that's just because I didn't like those people. The people who I got along with really well, we had a fucking ball. We had a blast, and in some of the worst circumstances that you can be in, we had a great time. You know, we had a lot of fun, there's a lot of laughter. So I think I think that when you want to analyze my sociability, it heavily depends on who I'm engaging with. I wouldn't be this open and disclosing to just anybody, but the platform, the idea of what I'm using this channel for is kind of what's directing this flow of information, this conversational approach. Got a nice little cockroach on the wall. It's a male. I call them Joe. I call them all Joe. Let's take a look at Joe. See how he's doing. What do you think about all this, Joe? Let's see if I can focus on you. Can we get a fucking focus here? Back on. Look at him go. Hey Joe, what do you know? Huh? We're all fuzzy and shit, man. How do you do this kind of like fucking like fancy ass like focusing and shit like that? I don't know. I'll figure it out. But this is going on for like 30 minutes, so I'm gonna stop. Oh yeah, keep your social distance.